Okay, good morning. I'm going to click this where I can see. Okay, so today we have a school station day and you don't need your reader. You only need your work text. So if you, and I don't really need my whiteboard today, but I recorded it this way because my computer acts funny when I do it a different way. So anyway, my picture's a little smaller today and I'm sorry about that. Okay, so go ahead and get your work text out. And I'm going to put the work text page numbers up here so you'll have it. You can pause it if you want after I get these typed up. 264 to 265. So go ahead and get that out. And if you want to, you do not have to, take out your Bible and turn to Matthew 8:23. Okay, so go ahead and get those out if you want to. Well, you have to have your work text out. Okay, so you should be on your work text now. So what would happen if it was Sunday morning and everybody in your family was ready for church and you were about to walk out the door and you could only find one of your shoes? If you lived at my house, I would probably go, ah! I hate that. I hate that so bad when somebody can only find one shoe. You would have a problem, wouldn't you? What if it was almost Christmas time and you had no money at all to buy any Christmas gifts for anybody? We have a problem, don't we? How would you solve it? Get a job, right? See if you could clean somebody's house, or maybe you could pull weeds in somebody's flower bed, or maybe you could babysit, or sweep out the barn, or whatever you could do. You'd find a way to solve the problem, right? You would find a solution to that problem. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk today about something called a crisis. Now, a crisis is typically the most interesting part of the story. It's the part where you go in a story. Okay, it's the part where everything changes. Now, I'm going to read to you a short passage from Matthew 8, and I'm going to start on verse 23, and I'm going to go through 27, okay? So follow along with me if you want to. Now, my Bible's probably a little different. Mine's KJV. I think we talked about that before. And when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves, but he was asleep. And his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he saith unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and sea obey him? That's my favorite New Testament account. Love it. I have one in the Old Testament too. One day I'll let you know what that is too. All right, so in that Bible account, let's look at page 264. Now, remember what the plot of a story is? The plot, remember I told you when you were younger and you'd listen to a story and then you'd have to go back and say, well, this happened first and this happened second and this happened third, and you'd have to put the numbers. That's the plot. The plot is the order in which things happen in the story. Okay? And what we're doing now, since you're in 4th, almost 5th grade, we're just adding things to that. So within the plot, there's this thing called a crisis, and it's the main thing. The other thing that we're learning is we're learning how to take the plot and kind of put it in sections. And so we can use a piece of candy that's wrapped up to help us learn how to do that. So look on page 264. Now we're going to think about now A, B, C, D, and E. Those are the main things from the story. That's the plot of the account that I just read to you. All right, now if you'll look at the piece of candy, you see the purple side? It says beginning, okay? And look right in the middle, between the beginning and the middle. The middle is the big green part, but look right in between the beginning and the middle, and it says problem or conflict. That means that you have the beginning of the story, it just introduces the story, and then the next thing that happens is you learn about the problem or the conflict. Remember, we were talking about problems and conflicts at the beginning of this, where I said, what if you could only find one shoe and it was time to go to church? We have a problem. So the problem or the conflict is always introduced close to the very beginning of the story. The middle part is the candy itself. That's the middle part. Now, the crisis, or the main thing that happens where everything kind of changes course, happens at the end of the middle. And then right before the end of the story, you have the solution. Basically right after the crisis, the solution. How'd you fix the problem? Well, we talked about if we didn't have money for a Christmas gift, we'd get a job. And if you couldn't find your other shoe and you're going to go to church, maybe your solution might be wear a different pair of shoes. So, and then at the end, that's the end of the story. Okay, so let's take A, B, C, D, and E, and let's label those inside the piece of that candy so that we can determine the Bible account, what the parts of the plot are. Okay, now read each one of these, A through E, and tell me, I want you to say out loud, which one you think should be the beginning. Did you say B, Jesus and his disciples entered the ship? Yeah, that was the beginning of the story. That's what happened in the beginning of the story. So right there in the little purple thing, there's a little round circle, and you're going to put letter B because that's the beginning. Now, the next letter is going to be where the conflict arose. What was the conflict? What was the problem? Remember, it was the storm. So which letter would go there? What about D? A storm threatened the ship and the disciples were afraid they'd drowned. That's the problem. And it was introduced pretty much right after the beginning of the story, where at the beginning of the story you learn Jesus and the disciples get on the boat. The next thing is the problem. The problem is there's a storm. Now, and then they go through the middle of the story. So the next thing we're going to do at the end of the middle part, we're going to find out what's the crisis, the main thing, the most exciting part of the story, which was what? What about E? When Jesus stood up and he spoke to the storm, was that not the most important and most exciting part of that account? Yes. So the crisis would be E. So you're going to put an E there on the big green part where it says middle, that bubble. You're going to put an E. Its crisis is pointing to it. Crisis is the main thing that happens. Now, the solution. What's the solution? The solution is basically what came about. What happened? C. The storm stopped and the disciples were saved. That's the solution. That's what happened. That's how the problem was fixed. So that's C. And the hardest one of all is the last one, the very end of the story, which is letter A. The disciples were amazed at Jesus' power. So you see how we plotted that story? We plotted it and we found the problem. We know the beginning and the middle and the end. We found the problem, which was given right after the beginning. We found the crisis, which is right at the end of the middle. And then we found the solution in the end of the story. Okay? All right, let's look at page 265. There's another candy thing right there. Now, look at the picture down here. Do you remember this story that we read? This was a strange fire in the White House. Remember, they had just put electric lights in there, and then Eben was there, and he was afraid of, the lights and such. Actually, the president was, but anyway. So we have A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, and what you need to do, what I want you to do is I want you to pause this in just a second, and I want you to try to place those in that piece of candy. Okay, this is not a graded page at all. Okay, I don't even have to see it. I just want to make sure you can put those where they belong. But do the same thing that we did on the other page, okay? I'm going to pause mine too while you pause yours because I have to go get some more coffee. All right. Did you put the letters in the piece of candy? I want to see if you got these right. Okay, so the beginning in the little purple, it should be C. Please come in. The President and Mrs. Harrison are expecting you. That's the beginning of the story. Now the problem should be A. I don't want the electric lights anywhere near me, Eben said. That's the problem. Now the crisis, the main thing that happened, the exciting part of the story is D. A fire crackled in the waste paper basket. If I could only see. And then the solution should be E. Taking a deep breath to steady his trembling hands, Eben flipped the switch. And then the end would be B. It might hurt to try to walk, but if I do my best, I won't be a failure. Okay, if you didn't get them right, that's okay. This is something we're just now learning. So we'll practice on these a little bit more, especially in 5th grade. Okay? All right, that is all of your reading for today. No assignment.